The year is 2001.
This is the Xbox. And so, for the first time, let me now unveil Xbox.
Welcome to 20 years of Xbox. Now, if you saw the title of my video, the OG Xbox was the console to get me into gaming, but it wasn't the first console that I had. Hello everyone, it's Jay, and if you happen to like my content, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, leave a comment down below, and let's get started. I had a slew of hand-me-downs coming from my brother. My very first console was the Super Nintendo, and I loved it for what it was.
There's only one place to come, the games of Super Nintendo.
Then I got a hand-me-down of a PS1, and then it was followed up by a PS2. But around 2003, my parents had gotten me an OG Xbox, which then became the very first console to get me addicted to gaming. It was just so futuristic at the time, and it felt like the future of gaming. This console would create the online that we see today in gaming consoles, not in PCs, because PCs had been around forever at that point, but it did create the online atmosphere that we know today. My very first title, like everyone else, was Halo. It felt so real and immersive at the time, and me and my friends or my brother would play the game for hours just blowing each other up. And just to showcase how much of an impact that game had on me, I have since collected the whole series of it, or the majority of it anyways. I don't have Halo Wars 2, but I have collected the majority of the series of those games. Halo wasn't the only game that I played on the OG Xbox though. I also played Midnight Club 3 and Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2, which felt really real at the time. Fast forward to Christmas 2005.
That future starts right here, right now.
And my parents had gotten me the next in gaming hardware, and that would be the Xbox 360. And that's when things really took off for me, and that's also when I started getting really addicted to gaming and like not focusing on school, which is not a good idea, but it was the turning point for me. The console felt so much like the future, especially with the Blades dashboard that was molded to look like the console itself. And this console really did impact my life so much, and it actually introduced me to stuff that I like to do now, which is tinker with electronics. The games I usually played on that console was either Halo 3, and the thing that I remember the most is the title screen and the soundtrack to it, or Test Drive Unlimited 1 and 2, or the Saints Row series, but more or less Saints Row 2 because of the online interaction. And back then, Modio was a thing that has been long since forgotten. And for people who don't know what Modio was an application that you could download on your PC, then get one of these little thumb drives and transfer over typically someone's saved files or some modded files and put them on the thumb drive, and then transfer them over to your Xbox 360 to whatever game that you wanted to have that saved file or modded file, so to say. People took advantage of that USB port on the 360, and rightfully so. Modio is still around to this day, but only hosts certain games from that time period, and they don't really work properly. Back on the 360, I played the 360 so much that I went through 5 consoles, and either it had to do something with the Red Ring of Death or it had something to do with the E74 code. Both were very, very terrifying. Everybody knew about it because it was a talk of the internet at the time, and so if it happened to you, you were basically SOL. Also, does anybody remember how customizable those consoles were at that time period? You had different colored faceplates, but you also had wrap for those consoles. I had a white Xbox 360 that was wrapped in Halo 3, and then it also had a different faceplate. Now, it wasn't the Halo 3 Xbox 360 that we know, but it was a white console that was wrapped in Halo 3. There were also numerous accessories for that damn thing. It was crazy. Every time you walked into Walmart and you would go to the gaming aisle, you would just see massive accessories for the console, like even at GameStop too, or EB Games, if anybody remembers that thing being around. There were a lot of fake fans to address the issue of the red ring that didn't work, but there was also this amazing accessory that came for the controllers, which was the keyboard. That thing literally made trash talking so much easier back then. Eventually, the Xbox 360 Slim would drop in 2010, which would address all the red ring issues, and I finally got a reliable console 5 years later. Of course, Kinect was bundled with it at the time, and this was a brilliant piece of technology that would be used for science later, but then forgotten by the gaming community whenever the Xbox One dropped. And a lot of that had to do with Microsoft just not pushing the Kinect like it used to. There was only like a handful of games that you could use it for, but then whenever the Xbox One dropped, you were using it for hand gestures to control your Xbox One dashboard. But even then, nobody really took it that seriously. And since then, on my Xbox One, I actually use Google Assist, and I'm pretty sure they do offer it on the Xbox Series X as well. But while we're speaking of the Xbox One now, in the fall of 2013, I remember dropping close to $700 for the pre-order of the Day One edition of Xbox One.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Xbox One.
That was a crazy time because I remember waiting until like 1 a.m. to get that damn console so that way I could go home and play it and then go to work the next day. That console was an all-in-one console, which really didn't go well with the gaming community. A lot of people thought that the Xbox One had fallen off of the gaming platform, which I do agree. A lot of the hardware on the VCR Xbox One didn't really pack the punch like the PS4 did. But even then, it was a very good console to game on, and then throughout the years, they made different iterations, the Xbox One X and the Xbox One S, and I now have an Xbox One S. The Xbox One X would offer 4K at 60 FPS, while the Xbox One S offered 1080p at 30 FPS. The games that I would mostly play on that was GTA 5, and that's whenever I quit gaming the majority of the time because I was working so much. But the Xbox would really get me into gaming that I know now. I now have a gaming PC setup, the OG Xbox, the Xbox 360e, which has been long since forgotten, and the Xbox One S. And I've actually done numerous videos on these, especially the Xbox original and the Xbox One S. I recently just did a teardown video of that and cleaning it up. I've actually done splatter painting videos as well with them. But these consoles really set a tone for me and what gaming was, and they really changed the game. The Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S offer amazing hardware for a good price, as long as that's not price gouge. But they also offer a developer mode, which you can emulate older games from past generations, which actually looks really good at 60 FPS. And on top of that, if you get online on the 360 now, it's still up and running, which is insane because that's been around since 2005. And that just goes to show you that Microsoft is still supporting its gaming community and offering like all of these emulators on their own hardware. But this was a blast from the past to celebrate 20 years of Xbox. Without these consoles, we probably wouldn't have what we have today. And that even goes for Sony and Nintendo as well. Without these gaming consoles, we wouldn't have what we have today. So, like I said in the beginning, if you happen to like my content, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment down below, and I'm out.